Pick your mans up.
And just because people used to come through shooting us every day. And this block, words can't even explain, man. Can't even explain.
Yeah, man.
Good school, Valley 05, way on money.
Young Money, man. They in the building.
600 boy, LA, man. LA Capone, man. Get it to him, man. OC2 boys, man. Team
Rondo number 9, man. Number 9 shooter, you hear me?
Hey, bitch, you little bitch. Yeah. What the fuck is wrong with you, hey, I am Brick Squad. Brick Squad, what the fuck is you talking about, bro?
You have to be willing to die or go to jail for 100 years if that's the lane that you're stepping in. You have to understand that whether you 15, 16, you got to think like a man, you know what I'm saying?
So don't be in it. Oh, you're not? Why does everybody say you're only 16 years old?
They say what they want to say.
How old are you?
300.
The story of BD. This is the story of BD from SMG23/BuffCity, a member who reportedly had 10 bodies under his belt, all caught within a span of only 3 years. He was the right-hand man to the top-tier member from DeathRow085, Fa. Together, they formed one of the most dangerous duos Chicago has ever seen. It's said that just the two of them were single-handedly winning the war against No Limit. Tragedy struck in 2022 when BD was killed. Meanwhile, Fa has been locked up in Ohio for the last 3 years on drug and gun charges, alongside TJ and Haba from DeathRow/Lakeside. BD is arguably the member who put in the most work in relation to how little recognition he actually gets. Almost no one talks about him today, likely because he wasn't a rapper and stayed strictly in the streets, but he remains one of the craziest members I've ever researched. I've actually been able to pin down his exact body count on NLMB because that information came directly from BuffCity sources. While his other hits are a bit more uncertain and not 100% confirmed like his work on No Limit, his reputation speaks for itself. I hope you enjoy this video. BD, or the Bully as he was widely known, was born Songdon on March 6, 2002. He spent his early years growing up in the notorious 100s on the south side before making his name on the east side. Throughout his life, his twin brother Fa was his closest bond, and the two were inseparable. They were both each other's right-hand man. BD was raised by his mother and grandmother in the 100s. But his grandmother passed away when he was in his early teens. He was extremely close to her, and losing her took a heavy toll on him during those formative years. BD's father was not present in his life, and BD frequently mocked him on Facebook, calling him a deadbeat. This is a common theme for many members in this environment. Unfortunately, most of them grow up without a strong male figure and are instead raised by their mothers and grandmothers, who often find it difficult to provide the same level of watch and discipline. Without a father in the house, there is almost always more room for freedom, something most guys can agree on, whether that means getting into gang life or just staying out too late with friends. There are also indications that his father is no longer alive and that he died when BD was young. BD moved to the east side during his early teenage years and attended James H. Bowen High School, which is located right near death row territory. It was at school that he and his brother got to know several members from DeathRow085 and eventually became close with them. In an interview, Death Row members explained that BD and Fa served as the link between BuffCity and the Row. They became cool simply because they were on the same timing, which basically means they respected each other's reputation for being active in the streets. However, BD was still mostly claiming BuffCity. He never claimed Death Row until 2019 when he started the beef with No Limit. Pretty early on after getting close with Death Row and after he had put in some work, BD started the Snitch movement, which still lives on today. BD even dropped a song under the name Snitch KBD, which is called The Biggest Snitch K. This was BD's only song he ever made, and honestly, it wasn't bad. BD repped 3 main sets, SMG23, DeathRow085, and BuffCity, and it's worth breaking down the history of these groups since their politics and locations are a bit more obscure than the typical sets you hear about. Starting with BuffCity, also known as 0D6 or 11 to 9 Buff, they are a black disciple set based in the Roseland neighborhood on the far south side. Their territory stretches from 113th and Michigan down to 119th and Wentworth, though members are frequently seen throughout West Pullman as well. The set has been active since the early 90s and takes its name from a fallen member named Buff. BuffCity has long-standing wars with nearby gangster disciple sets like Death Row, Marley Grove, Edgeworld, 9 Block, PA, and Embalm. In addition to their other conflicts, they are also at war with Kensington, a neighboring set that holds the distinction of being the only Hispanic gang in the 100s. Because high-profile members like BD duly claimed both this set and the East Side's DeathRow085, it effectively dragged the South Side set into the East Side's wars, leading their enemies to slide on 11 to 9. On the Alliance side, they are tight with most BD sets in the 100s, particularly Trey Block, Roodville, Main City, Darkside and Hooligang/Triggatown. They also have a deep connection to a block. Cap to Hot originally came from their blocks, and interestingly, O.D. Perry, the man O block is named after, originally originated from BuffCity as well. Their strong bond, or former strong bond I should say, with DeathRow085 on the east side is almost entirely due to the influence of the twins, BD and Fa Fa Fa. As mentioned, the relationship between Death Row and BuffCity was primarily held together by the twins, BD and Fa Fa Fa. While that bond was strong, Death Row also had a deep connection with 800 because of JMO from 085. Over the years, Death Row actually grew closer to the Snakes, 800/OTV, than they did to the sets in the 100s, mostly because they were geographically closer to 800's territory. However, things got messy after DJ from 800 died. Rumors started circulating that Lil Mike from 650 had backdoored DJ, which led to 800 allegedly trying to take Lil Mike out, an attempt that tragically resulted in the death of his girlfriend instead. Because Death Row was rocking heavy with the Snakes during this period, the tension was high. With BD dead and Fa 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 locked up, Key One from Death Row, BuffCity was really the last one holding it down for BuffCity within that circle. Key One was reportedly taking the TJ and Lil Mike's situation personally. He was hurting from seeing so many people close to him lost to backdoors. Instead of staying aligned with Death Row and 800/OTV, Key One distanced himself and became closer to Lil Mike. While some people claimed Key One was just dick riding Mike, the real reason was because he was tired of the backdoors and losing everybody. Since Key One has deep ties to both Main City and BuffCity, those sets followed suit and distanced themselves from the Death Row/800 alliance as well. Death Row and BuffCity are still cordial today, and I would imagine that the relationship will get strong again once Fa 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 gets released, but at the moment, BuffCity won't go to war for Death Row like they used to before. We now move on to the history of 085. Death Row is a conservative vice lord set located on the east side of Chicago, which is a long way from the south side blocks of Buff City. Their territory stretches from 84th to 87th, between Commercial and Muskegon, with their main block being 85th and Escanaba. Then we have SMG23, which I probably should have explained better earlier. It isn't necessarily its own separate set, but rather a movement similar to how Bloodhound operates. It's made up of members from Death Row, Buff City, Lakeside, and a few others who all claim the name. The name stands for Savo Murder Gang, and the 23 is a tribute to Arrow, who created Dottie Road. The story goes that Arrow allegedly killed Dottie from ABK/NLMB using a Glock 23, hitting him 19 times, which is where that number comes from. Death Row, who also goes by the name Main Street Boys, is mostly famous due to their beef with NLMB and because of Savo, who I just mentioned. He put them on the map through his music and dissing, and in the end, his death. Back to BD. Unsurprisingly, he was a black disciple due to his ties to Buff City, and he jumped off the porch around 2015 to 2016 when he was only 13 or 14 years old. In the beginning, it was mostly petty crimes, but things quickly escalated into very serious, federal-level activity. He moved from robbing people to shooting at them, and it wasn't long before he began taking lives. Due to his young age, it is difficult to know if BD had any arrests before 2020, when he turned 18, other than his arrest for the murder of Willie from NLMB. BD was a real hothead, though, so it's likely he had a few juvenile arrests that aren't part of the public adult record. Anyway, the first gang he slid with was Buff City, not Death Row, and he was shooting at Buff's enemies. Pretty early on, when he was around 16, he was taken on hits with older members from 0T6. That way, he learned how to do them. BD started sliding for real in 2017 when he was around 14 years old. At this time, he only slid with Buff City and Main City. In 2017, he was involved in a few shootouts with rival gangs such as Marley Grove, Kensington, and Embalm. However, it wasn't until late 2018 that BD would catch his first body when he was only 16 years old. On December 29, 2018, BD was allegedly involved in the murder of Glenn aka Glizzy from Embalm, which is one of the rival sets of Buff City. There is very little information about this murder and I haven't been able to find an article, but from the information I have received, BD was involved and it was supposed to be his first body. There are many rumors surrounding his early work with Buff City, because he definitely had bodies before Willie. There are also rumors that BD had a body on Kensington. There is also a rumor that he killed Seno from PA 115 in March 2022 while he was trying to slide on Buff City. However, these are just rumors and I don't want to go into too much detail as it is uncertain if it is actually true. What is fact is that BD at least had 8 bodies in total, with half of them being on NLMB and the rest on other gangs in the 100s and other East Side sets. I also believe that he has an innocent body on Burly Boys together with Fa Fa Fa. A lot of innocent people have gotten hit in the war between Death Row/Buff City and NLMB/Burly Boys. I want to mention all this before we get into the more confirmed bodies. BD was actually not so self-incriminating, at least not at the same level as his twin brother, that's for sure. As we move into 2019, the intensity shifts dramatically. This was a pivotal year, especially for BD, as it marked the official outbreak of the war between DeathRow085/BuffCity and NLMB. This conflict was fueled by a new generation of rising members, with BD and Fa leading the charge on the east side. The friction didn't start with guns. It began as personal clashes between the younger members of both sets. It started with petty squabbles and physical altercations, like when Jono from Death Row beat up Twan, only for young No Limit members to retaliate by jumping Jono. Rumors of snitching surrounding these fights only poured gasoline on the fire, turning teenage beefs into a full-blown street war. On April 3, 2019, Death Row drew first blood, officially kicking off a deadly series of retaliations. Scooter, also known as Boom Boom from No Limit, was walking along the 8500 block of South Exchange with two other 18-year-old men. Suddenly, two individuals with dreadlocks approached them and opened fire. The attack was brutal. Scooter, whose real name was Levon Hill, was struck in the face, neck, and chest. He was rushed to the hospital, but he didn't make it. His two friends were also hit, one in the leg and the other suffering severe injuries to his face and shoulder. Miraculously, both of them managed to pull through, but the violence had reached a point of no return. One of the alleged shooters was J Money from DeathRow085. He was eventually arrested on September 29th of that same year for one of the attempted murders and remains in Cook County awaiting trial. J Money's background is deep in the streets. He is the younger brother of Hell Ralph from Lakeside, the member who allegedly killed Mad Max from No Limit. Furthermore, J Money is the cousin of Lil Hot from Drench Gang. It's a tangled web of family ties, as much of their family is also related to KT Stray. This creates a wild dynamic, suggesting that Lil Hot might have actually been related to KT Stray, the very man he allegedly helped kill alongside other No Limit members in 2021. A particularly bold detail about the Scooter hit is that it happened right in the heart of Death Row territory, on their main block. It's still unclear what Scooter and his two friends were doing there, but in Chicago, it's not rare for members to lose their lives in enemy territory while lurking for an op or trying to catch a video for social media. While J Money was caught for his role, the second shooter remains officially unknown, though rumors in the streets have suggested the person claims MTG. The mockery on social media was relentless after the hit, with J Money and Savo from Death Row leading the charge. Just 3 weeks after the murder, J Money was on Facebook posting, "If your homie wants a ride, tell him to go get a scooter, and I get that call, I'm there in minutes," referencing King Von's twin M. Savo, who was putting in work both in the streets and in the booth, took the disrespect to the music. In his track 85 flow, he dropped the line, "J Money say let's boot up," smoking on a whole bunch of Scooter. While No Limit was hungry for revenge, things weren't going their way. That summer, Death Row caught another one on No Limit, and just 2 days later, Pocket Town and KTS scored as well. These were the back-to-back murders of Willie and Magic from NLMB. Before we dive into those hits, I need to clear up a major rumor. I previously mentioned that NLMB was responsible for killing Mook from Death Row, but that's actually false, even though No Limit claimed it. Based on new info confirmed by multiple sources, No Limit false claimed that body. It was actually the most from 89th and Exchange along with 83rd LZ who took Mook out. NLMB had absolutely nothing to do with it. As I mentioned before, the summer of 2019 was when death row struck again. And this time, BD caught his first body on NLMB. On August 10th, Willie Washington was standing on the sidewalk in the 7800 block of South Phillips Avenue when a car pulled up. Two guys hopped out and opened fire, hitting Willie multiple times in the head and upper body. This murder sticks out because of how quickly the internet reacted. Des from Lakeside posted a picture of Willie's body on Instagram, and anyone following the scene knew instantly that death row was responsible. The self-incrimination on social media was wild, especially from Savo, who was allegedly one of the shooters. The second shooter was reportedly BD, only 17 at the time, who was actually arrested and charged with the murder in January 2020. However, he was released in March 2022 after the case fell apart due to a lack of evidence. The driver on the hit was allegedly Fat Lord. There have been heavy rumors that Fat Lord talked a little too much to the police about this hit and another incident involving Arrow. Because of this, No Limit members have mocked him by calling him Rat Lord. On the other side, BuffCity members like C Murda and BD's brother, Fa, have stood by him, claiming he isn't the one snitching. The reality is that the situation is a mess. Even death row themselves aren't entirely sure who is talking, but Fat Lord remains locked up in Cook County awaiting trial without bond. Multiple sources have confirmed that Willie was BD's first body on No Limit, but it was far from his last. While Willie was a legitimate and beloved member of the set, many within No Limit have pointed out that he wasn't really active and was considered somewhat innocent. His death hit the neighborhood hard, especially the younger generation coming up at the time. The details of the hit are chilling. A witness, rumored to be Fat Lord, though not officially confirmed, told police he was driving BD and another person that night. He claimed the two said they were going to slide, which he understood meant they were going to shoot the first person they saw. When they spotted Willie walking toward a bus shelter, the other passenger told the driver to circle the block. According to prosecutors, BD hopped out of the back seat with a handgun and fired 7 or 8 shots directly at Willie before running back to the car. As BD was getting back in, the second shooter, widely rumored to be Savo, jumped out, approached Willie as he lay on the ground, and shot him several more times in the head. Officers found Willie face down in a pool of blood. He was pronounced dead shortly after. In a bold move, Tarantino from BuffCity later rapped about how BD officially kicked off the war with No Limit and specifically referenced the killing of Willie. The bleeding didn't stop there, though. Just 2 days later, No Limit lost another member, Magic, who was killed on the exact same block where Willie died. That hit was the work of Lakeside and Pocket Town. Only 2.5 weeks after Willie's murder, BD allegedly caught another body, marking his second in a single month. This time, the target wasn't NLMB but their ally, GME, formerly known as GMEBE. On August 31st, 2019, BD and his twin, Fa, killed an older member known as Ghost from South Sea, who represented the set's older generation. Ghost was outside with a group of people in the 8700 block of South Burleigh Avenue, territory belonging to Row Block, when shots rang out from an unknown direction as BD and Fa closed in. Officers responding to a shot spotter alert found Ghost unresponsive with multiple gunshot wounds to the chest. He was later pronounced dead at the University of Chicago Medical Center. Fa eventually bragged about the hit on Instagram. When someone asked, "Is the buff smoking GME?" he responded, "All boots on the ground for Ghost. Them dudes ain't did nothing for Ghost," mocking the lack of retaliation for the older member.
The buff smoking GME. Man, all boots on the ground for Ghost. Them niggas ain't did shit for Ghost. Fuck you talking about? And Ghost had smoke coming off his ass.
On September 9th, 2019, NLMB finally got their revenge for Scooter by taking out one of his alleged killers, Savo. There has been a ton of misinformation floating around about this hit, specifically a theory that the Latin Kings or Wacko World were responsible. That theory is completely false. Much of the confusion stems from a separate incident where Arrow from Death Row was killed by a licensed bystander in a Latin King neighborhood. People on Reddit tried to connect the two, claiming Arrow was seeking revenge for Savo, but that's just a made-up rumor. Here's the real story. Savo, who was only 19 at the time, was on house arrest, which is why he was standing right outside his home in the 10,600 block of South Avenue O, territory belonging to Bucktown, Spanish vice lords. A car rolled through the block and someone inside opened fire. Savo was hit in the stomach and leg. He was rushed to the University of Chicago Medical Center, but he didn't survive. It's very clear that No Limit was behind this. Sources from both sides have confirmed it, and Fa from BuffCity has even stated on Instagram and in live streams that No Limit only has one real body on death row, referring to Savo. The shooter who allegedly pulled the trigger was Lil 40 from NLMB, who is Lil Scoom's older brother. While it's unclear exactly who else was in the car, names like Diesel and J. have been brought up in street rumors. There is also talk that GMEBE members were present on the hit, which is reportedly the real reason why Death Row has such heavy static with the Burleigh Boys today.
You want to do that?
No, I ain't gonna say nothing because the blogs on your shit.
Say
In fact, you got Chicago City 88 on your shit on before they fuck around. Fact, they fuck around and book our dumb.
You know that.
Cuz.
But I'm saying, dude.
No, cuz. You the troll king.
You know that. But who did something to me? Who
the
did
troll
something to
king?
me?
Who did something to your brother?
To me yet, though? Not y'all. Not Merchant.
No, I'm not
Merchant.
talking about. I'm not
Merchant.
talking about. What's the name? I'm talking about
Merchant.
other shorty. The one y'all merch on.
Who?
The one who gang y'all is. Lil Savo.
Oh. You want to drop names? Why is you dropping names, cuz? You right, cuz. You right, cuz. I like how you saying. Stop doing that like you don't know.
There are several deep layers to the murder of Savo. Because he had been on house arrest for months leading up to his death, he spent a massive amount of time on the internet, constantly teething with No Limit members. He was steady dissing them in his songs, mocking Mad Maxing videos with Jayla from Death Row, and making disrespectful posts about Millie from Delmob/NLMB, who had tragically passed away from cancer in July 2019. As usually happens in the city, the tables turned, and it became No Limit's turn to mock. In one exchange, Arrow from Death Row posted on Facebook, "Lil Dottie got left next to a garbage can," to which Diesel from NLMB coldly responded, "And Savo died in front of his mother." Interestingly, the one person who hasn't really been seen dissing Savo is the alleged killer himself, Lil 40, also known as the Kruger. Many people recognize Lil 40 as a rapper. He has several videos with hundreds of thousands of views and has even collaborated with G Herbo. While he hasn't been vocal with the disses, he did name one of his tracks Nightmare on Main Street, a direct reference to the fact that Main Street is another name for DeathRow085. However, the streets don't forget. In 2020, Lil 40 nearly lost his life when he was shot by Fa, BD's right-hand man, in what was almost certainly a revenge attempt for Savo. Fa even essentially admitted to this on a livestream with Big Up, stating he shot the only member from NLMB who ever actually did anything to Death Row. Fa also posted a story writing, "They only took one from the row and the dude who did it felt hot shit, almost got his head taken off from his shoulders." This wasn't Savo's first run-in with gunfire. Back in August 2015, when he was only 14 years old, he was actually shot by the police. Officers had responded to reports of shots fired in the 8900 block of South Escanaba and spotted two males on bikes, Savo and his 19-year-old brother. According to the police, Savo took off running when they questioned him about what was in his pocket. During the chase, they claim he pulled out a weapon. When he refused to drop it, an officer fired a single shot that struck Savo in both of his legs. He was stabilized at Cumber Children's Hospital, but the drama didn't end there. Another brother, Denzel, was arrested after he tried to force his way onto the crime scene. Police say Denzel punched an officer in the head and damaged a vehicle, leading to charges of aggravated battery to a peace officer. This incident highlights just how much of a hothead Savo really was. He was almost like a younger, light version of Lil Jojo. For anyone who follows the Chicago drill scene, it almost seemed like Savo was daring someone to catch him. He would regularly drop his live location to No Limit members on social media, a common but dangerous way to taunt enemies, essentially betting they won't show up just so he could clown them for it later. Sadly, that's a gamble that eventually caught up with him. Revenge would be sweet for Death Row, and it didn't take long to arrive. On December 4th, 2019, Death Row teamed up with Black Mob to slide on G. Dottie from NLMB/ABK. Dottie was walking in an alley in Black Mob territory, listening to his AirPods, completely unaware of what was coming. A vehicle pulled up and the occupants opened fire, dropping Dottie instantly. Arrow from Death Row then reportedly jumped out of the car and emptied an entire clip into Dottie with his Glock 23. Arrow later claimed that Dottie was hit over 19 times. The second shooter is rumored to have been Michi from Black Mob, the same member many believe was the actual killer of Mad Max, rather than Hell-Rel. Dottie, who was only 21, was pronounced dead at the scene. In his honor, his comrades created the name Dottie Road. At this time, Black Mob and Death Row were extremely tight. Key members like Arrow, Fa, J-Money, Savo, and BD were constantly hanging out on Black Mob's blocks, specifically with Michi. The disrespect following the hit was heavy. Just weeks later, Michi G mocked the new tribute name by posting Dottie Road with a laughing emoji. He also made two other cryptic posts shortly after the murder: "Ice cubes and shells. I know you see this, and sorry Lord, it's either kill or be killed." The rest of the circle joined in on the mockery. C-Safe from Black Mob posted smoke emojis, while Death Row members posted, "You be on the 9 but you from the 5, we spinning them both." Dion from Death Row specifically shouted out Arrow's involvement, posting, "And for Arrow I'm smoking." Dottie on the jump out shit got flamed up, while Fa posted a series of stories. Entering 2020, things only got more violent for Death Row. The year started with a major loss when Arrow, one of the alleged shooters on the G. Dottie hit, was killed just 5 days into January. On January 5th, Arrow and Fat Lord were sliding in a turquoise SUV when they spotted Eric Garcia and his 24-year-old neighbor standing on the street. Both Arrow and Fat Lord hopped out with 9mm handguns and opened fire. The neighbor was hit in the arm but managed to run, while Eric was struck multiple times and fell to the ground. In a move they didn't expect, Eric, who was a concealed carry holder, pulled out his own .40 caliber handgun and returned fire from the ground. He hit Fat Lord in the arm and back, and fatally wounded Arrow. Eric Garcia was later pronounced dead at the hospital, while Arrow died right there on the scene. Police recovered nearly 30 shell casings from the shootout. Fat Lord managed to escape in the SUV and was dropped off at a hospital in a wheelchair, still wearing the distinctive yellow shoes seen on surveillance footage. Because Fat Lord was an aggressor in a situation that led to deaths, he was hit with first-degree murder charges for Eric Garcia and felony murder for the death of his own partner, Arrow. Despite the heavy street rumors that Fat Lord snitched, which I previously believed as well, it turns out he didn't actually have to. The surveillance footage and evidence were so clear that prosecutors didn't need a statement to charge him. Fat Lord remains in Cook County awaiting trial. In 2022, BD was released after beating the murder case, and the conflict between DeathRow/BuffCity and NLMB flared up once again, beginning with the murder of Velo Mac on April 12. Initially, many believed Drench Gang was responsible because of the immediate and intense mockery from No Limit on social media. This made sense to many followers, as Drench Gang, the younger generation of No Limit, grew up specifically beefing with Death Row. Velo was a heavy hitter who had been in numerous shootouts with No Limit and was reportedly present on several hits. Most notably, he was allegedly involved in the August 2020 murder of BT from No Limit 083, alongside Dez from Lakeside and Fa Fa Fa. However, Velo also repped BTBG, which stands for Baby D Blood Gang, a traveling vice lord set from the west side. He was arguably even more active in their wars against sets like Beam Team and Ghost Mob. Despite the theories of a street hit, Velo was actually killed inside an apartment in Rantoul, about 2 hours outside of Chicago. Months later, a man named Quayandi Cheney was arrested for the homicide, a name that was completely off the radar, at least mine. Moving into the summer of 2022, the war reached a boiling point as No Limit lost 3 members in quick succession, all reportedly to DeathRow085/BuffCity/SMG23. The first to fall was 36-year-old Zello on July 22nd. He was standing in the 7500 block of South Colfax, deep in Black Mob territory, with a 65-year-old man when shooters opened fire from across the street. Zello was hit multiple times and died at the hospital, while the older man, likely an innocent bystander, was struck in the leg. Sources confirm that Death Row was behind the hit, with the shooters allegedly being the duo of BD and Fa Fa Fa, who were frequently spotted in Black Mob's area. This marked BD's second body on NLMB. Zello was the cousin of Wiz from NLMB, who publicly mourned him, but the rival sets showed no mercy. Lil Don from Pocket Town posted, "All sides stay on they ass," while Moolah from Death Row commented directly on my Instagram post about Zello's death, writing, "His ass got the belt, that's the cause." That comment sparked a massive digital war between Fa and Lil Lost from Drench Gang. The two went back and forth about who chased who and old fights involving throwing bottles. During the exchange, Fa openly bragged about shooting several No Limit members, a claim backed up by the fact that he actually shot Savo's killer, Lil 40. If there was any doubt about who took Zello, Fa essentially closed the case by all but admitting to it on his Instagram story. Less than 2 weeks later, BD claimed another victim, Freddie from NLMB. On August 4, 2022, the 33-year-old was walking in the 2600 block of East 75th Street, the exact same block where Zello had been killed just 14 days prior. Terrifyingly, the shooter was reportedly the same man, BD from BuffCity/DeathRow, and he allegedly did it together with a wall from Black Mob. Freddie was shot multiple times, including in the head, and passed away at the hospital a few hours later. It remains a mystery why No Limit members continued to walk through Black Mob territory. Even if Black Mob themselves are rarely on that block these days, DeathRow and BuffCity are constantly lurking there specifically to catch No Limit members slipping. Freddie's death marked No Limit's 6th loss of 2022, and Walveru from Drench Gang, believed to be his cousin, mourned him deeply. Many others stayed quiet. To be brutally honest, neither Zello nor Freddie were considered active members at that stage. Street sources and even some No Limit members behind closed doors have suggested they were essentially innocent, with some even claiming they don't officially rep Freddie. Interestingly, there wasn't much mockery from the ops this time. Instead, No Limit members clowned DeathRow and BuffCity, accusing them of only being able to catch older, inactive members. Regardless of the rank of his targets, BD had now killed Willie, Zello and Freddie from NLMB. However, he was not done yet with No Limit. 3 weeks after the murder of Freddie, he would score yet again, this time on Drench Gang. However, before we get to that, I just want to mention quickly that in either July or early August of 2022, BD almost killed BuffCity from 357/block in connection with a video shoot for Spida D song, Top Pick. It's kind of unknown why they backdoored him, but BD shot him 7 times including the neck and face after robbing him for his gun. However, somehow, BuffCity managed to survive and later did an interview with Truth Teller where he talked about the situation. He also dropped a song where he rapped about what happened. This incident is actually quite weird because BD always seemed like the type of guy who was strictly against backdooring. He had even gone on record saying that backdooring is lame, which makes you wonder what really went down. It suggests there was something much deeper behind the incident than a simple argument or a physical fight for him to end up in that situation. On August 28, 2022, the war hit the newest generation head-on. Lil Trey Young, also known as Shaky, from Drench Gang/Shorty Mob was on the porch of a residence in the 500 block of West 87th Street when 2 gunmen opened fire. Trey was struck multiple times in the head and body, He was rushed to the University of Chicago Medical Center but was tragically pronounced dead at just 18 years old. The loss left his family and girlfriend devastated, particularly his brother, Lil Mark from NLMB/BuffCity, who frequently mourns him on social media. Lil Trey's death is a sobering example of the cycle of violence in the city. There is even a well-known photo of him as a young child standing with Lil Bibby, making his violent end only a few years later all the more jarring. The shooters behind the hit were reportedly the duo of BD and Fa from BuffCity/DeathRow085/SMG23. With this hit, BD had allegedly claimed his fourth body on No Limit alone, while Fa notched his second. Unlike the previous two victims, who were considered older or inactive, Lil Trey was an active youngin from No Limit new generation, making this a major score for Death Row in the eyes of the streets. BD's actions and way of overdoing it would catch up to him quickly. Only a few hours after he killed Lil Trey, BD would face the same fate as his victim. As I said, only a few hours later, BD was hanging out with KY from 049 Murderfield, which by the way is an extinct set nowadays. Either way, BD and KY were outside in the 8300 block of South Paxton Avenue, an area close to MTG, No Good and No Limit 083. While outside, BD and KY got into an argument with another male. The argument tragically led to the third male pulling out a gun and shooting both BD and KY. BD was shot in the leg, arm, chest and head while KY was shot in the back, torso and pelvis. Both victims were DOA. Based on where the victims were shot, my guess is that BD was the first one to get hit and that KY tried to run but could not outrun the flying bullets and ended up getting struck in the back multiple times. Many people are likely wondering if Drench Gang killed BD and KY as direct revenge for Lil Trey Young, but the answer is no, at least not in the way most people think. Initially, the streets were convinced Drench Gang was behind it because the motive was so obvious and the mockery from No Limit was relentless. Lil Ro was posting about get back timing, Muwop was sharing photos of BD's victims saying ain't no killing without killing, and Varu was talking about Drench Gang making it rain. While the social media posts made it look like a standard hit done by No Limit, I got reports just hours later that BD and KY were actually backdoored. This fits the news reports perfectly, which mentioned they were in an argument before the shooting started. Ops don't usually stop to argue, so it was clearly a personal confrontation. However, according to my sources within NLMB, the person who backdoored them didn't just do it for personal reasons, they did it on behalf of No Limit. As one source put it, just know we got people that love us. While the specific name of the shooter who pulled the trigger during that argument is still unknown, the word on the street is that the betrayal was a coordinated move to settle the score for Drench Gang. It was a backdoor situation executed by someone they knew, but the intent behind it was pure No Limit retaliation. BD was truly an elite factor for BuffCity/DeathRow085, having allegedly caught 4 bodies on No Limit alone. This puts him in that rare, infamous category alongside members like Shoota Shells, Shawty Hit, and KT Stray, men who all had multiple bodies on NLMB. Out of that entire list, only Shawty Hit from Black Mob is still alive today. BD was the twin brother of Fa Fa Fa, who has his own heavy reputation with 2 bodies on No Limit, Zello and Lil Trey Young. After the shooting on Paxton, Fa 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 went to social media to shut down the talk, posting that people were only wolfing because his twin had been the one laying belt on them. He even posted a picture of BD with a chilling caption claiming BD was the last face many people saw, suggesting a total count of nearly 10 kills across the east side in the 100s. The respect for BD, or the bully, crossed several gang lines. Des from Lakeside and Trigger from Rawtown both paid respects, with Trigger even taunting No Limit about how Willie Washington's head got rearranged. Even Lil Woody from Circuit City paid homage, calling BD Mr. Spanked Ops and claiming that the people dissing him now were the same ones who were terrified of him when he was alive. This interaction really highlights the deep-seated tension between Circuit City and NLMB. I actually believe Fa Fa Fa's claims about his brother's count, between the 4 on No Limit and the others in the 100s and other East Side sets. BD was a major problem. Fa 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 himself is just as dangerous, with bodies allegedly on NLMB, No Limit 083, and in the 100s, not to mention being the one who nearly took out Lil 40. There is no doubt that Fa 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 is at the very top of No Limit's hit list and he is getting released this year. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Stay safe, and may God bless you all. Let me know what you want to see next.